Hi, my name is Betsy Gaines-Quammen, and I'm the Executive Director of the Tributary Fund. The Tributary Fund focuses on empowering religions to take leadership roles in conservation. We work with faiths all over the world on issues such as species protection, climate change, sustainability, reforestation, and energy. According to our partner, the Alliance for Religion and Conservation, religious leaders inspire 85% of the world's population. We feel that by investing in these leaders and providing them with materials, small grants, and training, we can reach people that once exceeded our grasp. The Tributary Fund staff, along with Wimberg Productions, traveled to a workshop called Many Heavens, One Earth, held at Windsor Castle in England. The occasion gave us an opportunity to interview faith leaders on their beliefs and find out how their faith encourages a love of nature. Our time there inspired us, and it also confirmed that by investing in religious leaders, we're doing the right thing. Funding for environmental campaigns comes and goes, but religious leaders remain in their community and influence community members. Religion has longevity, staying power, and sway. What you're going to see next are a series of interviews with religious leaders. We celebrate their work to protect the earth, and we applaud their actions.
Siku ya Uumbaji, the day of creation. We call it like that, Siku ya Uumbaji. And it means we're going to celebrate, thank God for the gift of life on the creation, but at the same time to remind ourselves of our responsibility in the caring for the creation.
We are ambassadors of God, and when you are ambassador of someone or a country, then you look after the advantages and benefits of that country who you are representing. So we are ambassadors of God here, and we are custodian and guardian of this earth.
There is a story there about when in a time of war a city is being laid under siege, it is forbidden to cut down the fruit trees. And from that one phrase, the rabbis developed the notion of Bal Tashchet, from which they said there was a religious obligation not to destroy things and not to waste things.
We have got an earth as a gift from God to protect and to serve, and we do that while we are waiting for the kingdom of God. Sure, the Holy said that there will come a kingdom of God at last, but until then we have to protect the world.
Most religions have, in the last 20 or so years, looked quite deeply into their own teachings, their traditions, their practices, and sometimes to their surprise discovered quite how profoundly environmental their own teachings and their own traditional practices have been. And so there's been a slow but steady growth of environmental action by the major religions. But the scale of the challenge that confronts us is escalating quite rapidly.
The Noah Ark stories speak of biodiversity, looking at the way really God, I would say quite cleverly, ordered Noah to take all these sorts of species and a pair of each. This shows clearly that God's creation is an inclusive one, and it's a biodiversity where all sorts of creatures and animals and we live together or do live together.
As a Buddhist, I find that being a conservationist is actually part of my Buddhist practice. His Holiness the Karmapa, who I serve, makes it a point all the time to say that, if you really want to be a good Buddhist and you make an aspiration prayer to benefit all sentient beings, well, what you should do is plant a tree, because one tree produces enough oxygen for 4 people. So it's a very direct translation of what we as Buddhists believe, that we're here to benefit all sentient beings.
Like Prophet Muhammad said, if you plant a tree and you look after that tree, or you sponsor that tree, basically you appoint someone to look after, or you look after yourself. When that tree grows, you will be rewarded. That tree is means of ongoing charity for you.
There's a very central concept of standing up for justice for others is very much embedded in the theology of Sikhism. So what I'm trying to convince people is that standing up for earth is extension of that definition, that's standing up for justice.
Most of the other organizations, they are doing a lot, but most of them are situated in the big cities. You'll find them in towns and in cities. But it's only the church which has this structure, the structure which goes down to the grassroots, to the remotest part of the country. And that's why we think, as a church, we have a vital role to play in concern for the conservation of creation, and in mobilizing people, motivating people.
In my own case, what I've found is that it takes a lot to convince a politician, if it's against their interest, to work on conservation. It takes a lot to convince corporations, certainly, especially if they use those resources for their own business, to get them to think more holistically or think about sustainability. It actually takes very little to convince a religious leader, because most religions, fundamentally, they're about the sacredness of life. They're really about sanctity of life. And if we can find a way to have that conversation at that level, it's effortless, really.
The one thing I think it's very important that we bring to the table is that we bring people to the table. As a faith organization, our stronghold, our strong point is in changing the hearts and minds of people. That's what we do as faith organizations. We teach and empower people. And I believe in order for us to really make the planet a better place, we have to empower the caretaker of the planet. So we said, from a faith perspective, we really should be at the table, because we're the persons who are going to empower the thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people from around the world who are going to do the action to take care of the planet.
The idea behind sustainability is that you have something that can survive, something that can progress, that can develop, but that doesn't actually cost the earth, and that has the ability to continue indefinitely. Well, that's what the religions have done. They're the oldest institutions in the world. We've outlived every dynasty, every empire. We've outlived the great communist empires. The last ones are fading gently into the sunset. We've outlived, as I point out to the UN, the League of Nations, and we will outlive the United Nations. So if you want to build something that's going to last, why on earth would you build it on a government, when you could build it on a group like the Sikhs, who in 1999 made a 300-year commitment to protect the environment, because their time cycle goes in 300-year cycles. And in 300 years' time, there will still be Sikhs following that through. I'm not quite sure how many members of the Republican Party or the Labour Party will still be functioning.
Many times in the Quran, Sabbaha lillahi ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard. Everything on earth, everything on the heaven is praise God. So, conservation is about protecting nature, which is the God creation. So, whatever we as conservationists must be proud because we are protecting God's creation.
The religions alone would not have awoken to the environmental crisis by themselves. It has needed the prophetic voice of the environmental movement. But the environmental movement alone, with its data and its statistics and its scientific analysis, isn't going to move hearts. It needs the arts, it needs drama, it needs music, and it needs faith. No one denies the scale of the problem we confront, but the belief that you can scare people into good behaviour is a fallacious one. It's one that the faiths have tried at various times and we know it doesn't work. And therefore what the environmental movement has done is it's taken the let's scare them and get them to then do what we want mode of religion, but it's forgotten that religions always balance that with wonder and glory and celebration. So the reason we celebrate is in a sense to say, look, come on, yes, it's tough, it's terrible, it's ghastly, but it's also still the most beautiful world that we know. It's the only planet that sings. Let's sing with it.